Hey there, welcome to part 2 where we take a look at Hologram Electronics Chroma Console. In part 1 we did a little unboxing and we did a very basic sound test. I didn't want to read the manual straight away, I wanted to dive in and just see how intuitive it was as a device. And I have to say, it's pretty straightforward to just plug something in, run some sound through it and see what it's all about. However, in this particular episode we're going to go into more of a deep dive. I'm going to split this with time codes so you can find the section that you're most interested in. But we're going to be looking at most of the important features in greater detail. Now I'm not going to be doing another sound test. We did that in part 1 and that takes up quite a large portion of the video. In this episode we're just going to be sticking to small bite-sized tutorials for the basic functions. And one other thing, just for those that are interested, I'm not going to be covering the MIDI side of things because I'm not a big MIDI guy and I feel like there's other people out there that can kind of dive into that further and show you what this thing's capable of. All of the other basic functions though, like the looper, how to move your effect chains around, how to set up and save your presets, all of that kind of stuff we're going to be covering in this episode. Now before we dive in, I just want to show you one other thing. I said in part 1 that this thing was a little bit slippy when it was on a desk and it moved around, and I recommended that you could go out and get some little rubber feet. I did just that. I picked these up from Amazon for about £3. You can get all different types, doesn't have to be these ones, but it does make a difference. Just stick them on the bottom and now this unit doesn't slide about when I'm playing around with parameters and things. Anyway, with that said, let's dive in and take a look at some of the features. Now if you've just taken yours out of the box, I highly recommend calibrating it. I should have done it in part 1, and it's really simple to do. In order to access the calibration menu, you just hold down both the foot switches at the same time until you see purple lights across the board. And the white light we have here is the current preset. It goes from low to very high. And of course, if you just want to set this manually, you can press one of these buttons to select that preset. The other way to do it, which I highly recommend, is to calibrate based on the input signal coming through. So all you have to do is plug in whatever device you're going to run through the box, play a note or a sample. It's going to calibrate based on the signal input volume coming through, and it's going to automatically adjust and pick one of these presets. So let's play this synth app here with one note. You can see the lights turn green while it's doing that, and once it's decided what the headroom should be, it comes back to the main menu. Just bear in mind there are two ways that you can do it. Of course, you can select manually or you can let the box decide. It will get the most out of the effects though if you have the right calibration for the signal that's coming through. Now in part 1 we did a basic sound test and I talked about some of the basic operations. I don't want to repeat the sound test, but I do want to go over the basic controls again just so that all the important information is here in one video. Now I'm sure if you've bought one of these, you already understand how this works, but it is an effects box. It's something that you send a signal through to apply effects, and that can be anything from a sampler, a guitar, any input source can be brought through this device, and then the effects can be applied on top of that signal. We have 4 effects channels, so red, yellow, green, and blue, and for each of those channels you can select one of 5 effects. Now if we take a look at our red channel, that is the character channel as an example, we can choose using the switch underneath here. If we go to red, that is drive, sweeten, buzz, howl, and swell. It's all written clearly on the box so you can see what you're selecting. And although you can't stack multiple effects from one channel, you can stack effects from the 4 different channels as you run these through in a chain. Now you can apply just one single effect, or you can apply as many as you like up to the 4 different channels. And the position of those effects can be changed, which we'll go into later on. Now for each of the effects, you have these encoders across the top. The bottom, by default, are changing the amount because there are 2 states. There is a primary state where you're changing the larger text underneath these encoders. And then there is a secondary state where you're changing the smaller, finer text underneath the encoders. By default, these bottom encoders, you're changing the amount. And at the top for the red channel, you're changing the tilt. For yellow, it's the rate. And for green, it's the time. This gray encoder in the top right-hand corner, by default, is changing the mix level, so the dry and wet of the signal. Turn to the left, it's a dry signal. All the way to the right is a wet signal. If you go into the secondary menu, you'll be changing the effect volume for all of the bottom encoders. And at the top on the red channel, you'll be changing the sensitivity. For the yellow, it is drift. For green, it is also drift. And for the gray encoder in the top right, you'll be changing the main output level. Now, if you want to bypass one of these individual channels, you can just long press and you'll see the light goes off to show you that it's bypassed. And that can also be achieved by just cycling through the list. So if we go through purple, it's off. We go to red, all the way through, we will come back to an off state. Now you can also bypass the effects using this switch on the bottom right hand side. If you do a single quick press of this switch, it's going to bypass all of the effects at the same time. You'll know that because the light goes off and these lights above become dimly lit. To re-enable the effects, you just press it again. And there's a way to dual bypass this where you can actually select which effects you'd like to be enabled or disabled by the foot switch, and I'll show you how to do that later in the tutorial. Now the cool thing with the Chroma Console is it gives you a little diagram here at the bottom, so you can't really get lost in terms of selecting other menus and other functions. In order to access the secondary parameters for these encoders across the top, all you have to do is press the first two buttons, which you will see on the little menu here where it says secondary. We press A and B together, and we are now in the secondary menu. So now when you start turning these encoders and changing the value, on red I would be changing the sensitivity, over here it would be drift, the same for drift, and with our gray encoder I'd be changing the output level, and it's the same for the encoders underneath. So very simple to get to your secondary controls. And when you want to come out of that menu, you can just press those two buttons again to come back to your main menu. Now another thing you might want to do is change the order of the effects, and we can do that. By default it goes from left to right, so it runs through character, through movement, through diffusion, and then through texture. But you can change that. You can change the order to suit yourself. In order to do it, it's very simple. You press A and D here like this, and you will notice it lights up in the current order, left to right. When it's in flashing blue like this, we can choose a new order. So perhaps I want it to go to diffusion first, then maybe to character, then texture, and then the amount. It's going to program that, save it, and then move back to the main menu. So that chain has now been changed. And if you want to just see the order that's currently selected or change it to a new order, you press A and D again, where you can reset that. But just watch, the animation will be different this time. It starts here, moves over in the order that we specified. Now another important feature is the ability to tap the tempo and set the tempo for the little Chroma Console. Of course you might want to do that, you're jamming along with a band, you're putting a song together, and you need some of the effects that might use like a delay, something like that, to be in time with whatever it is you're working on. It's really simple to do. You just tap the tempo using the left foot switch, and I'm going to be using the yellow, which is reels on the diffusion channel, to just do a very quick demonstration of this. So I've set it up with an amount and we've dialed in the timing. I just want you to take a quick listen as I play this synth note. And you can hear it like that. That is the current timing. If I tap out a new tempo here, maybe we do something quicker. You can hear how it changes. We'll make it slow again. It shows you how the tempo can play a pretty important part with this particular device. Next, let's talk about the looping function. It's pretty basic. You get 30 seconds of looping time. Now, there seems to be two flavors of this. We can record very short notes where it adds like a soft edge and it'll kind of seamlessly overlap, or you can capture longer pieces of audio and it acts like a traditional looper. Keep in mind as well that if you start looping and recording, you're playing something and you change the parameters, it will record those parameter changes in there as well. We'll just do something very basic. Let's do a very short note, and when it's recorded into a short note like this and it's going to be seamless and kind of fade, you'll notice this lights up blue when it's playing back the recording. In order to activate it, we just do a long press on this left hand side switch. You can see it's pretty seamless and it loops around like a drone. The other way, of course, is the longer looping style, slightly more traditional, and you'll notice the difference here is it lights up in green when you're in that mode. So if we just play a very basic melody, but that has a slightly more aggressive cutoff to the end of it, so you don't get that soft tail in the shorter looping mode. As far as I'm aware, every time you just start recording, it overwrites what you did previously. So if you just want to get rid of something, then you just need to begin and start again. So we could record something new. You get the idea. Now, I think one of the coolest features on this little box is the ability to record parameter effect changes in real time. So as you move the encoder, you can record that movement and it will play back, a bit like automation in your DAW. The way that we do that is with gesture, and you'll notice down here, gesture, it gives us C and D. So we're going to press those two together. That gives us a series of white lights. Now, if it's all white lights, that means nothing's currently recorded. If we start moving any of these encoders and changing any of the parameters, the first thing, it will light up red to let you know it's recording. If you want to stop recording, press C and D again at the same time. And when it's made a recording, you've captured some movement that you like of the encoder, it will light up green to let you know that there's something recorded there. The cool thing about this is that you can do that for multiple encoders, multiple different effect parameters all at the same time. It doesn't have to be singular. Now, I'm just going to use a singular effect here, change one parameter so you can hear what it's doing, but watch for the little light will turn red as we start tweaking this, and I'm going to play a note so you can hear it. You get a little timer here that tells you how long you can record that for, but you can stop it at any point with C and D if you want it shorter. It's now turned green because we've recorded some information, and if I play this now, we should hear that effect. There you go, you can hear that effect's been recorded in. Now let's say you've set up a bunch of these and you've got multiple different parameters all being recorded, you would see a bunch of green lights. There might be a point where you've made a mistake on one of the encoders and you just want to delete that one encoder's automation. The way that you do that is to move the encoder, but you have to be careful with it because if you just want to clear it out, you need to move just a very small amount until the light turns white. If you move it too much, it goes back into recording and starts recording again. So just be careful with that. But if we just want to delete, say, the automation of this one encoder, I'm just going to move a very small amount till that light goes white. There you go, and that's set. Now, if we had a bunch of stuff recorded here, let's just move a bunch of these to show you, of course, that you can record on multiple different steps. It's going to have the same thing. If I do C and D for a second, it just stop all of that recording. If we go back into that mode with C and D, we can see all of the things we've recorded here because it's all lit up green. If you want to delete all of them at the same time, just clear everything out. You press C and D together and you long press it until it flashes. Now, one final thought here is that if you're playing around with this and you record some automation just like we did then, if you want to experiment and play around with that, you can still come in and change the tempo by tapping the tempo like I showed you earlier in the video, and that will have an effect on the timing that you have here. So you can experiment with that. You could record those movements at 120 BPM and then change the BPM of the box down to 70 and just see what that does to the sound and to the effect. Might be quite interesting. The next thing I want to talk about is the presets for the device. Now, in part one, I was under the impression that there were a bunch of built-in presets on the box, and then you could save custom user presets. On top of that, you have 80 slots to do so. However, when I come to audition those, I couldn't hear anything, and after a quick Google search, I realized that actually there are no built-in presets. There are only the slots to create custom user presets. Now, I'm not sure that's 100% clear in the manual, and the reason I say that is because I wasn't the first person that had searched for this. As soon as I was on some of the forums, there were a lot of people asking the same question. Why couldn't they hear the built-in presets? I think the written information maybe in the manual or on the website could be a little bit clearer about the fact that there are no built-in presets, because if you've bought any piece of music gear, you kind of expect user presets, whether it's a sampler, a synth. These are the type of things that you expect. And whilst I don't think it's necessary that you have to have the presets there, I just think it could be clearer in terms of the written information, whether they actually exist or they don't. And so with that said, we've got 80 user slots where we can actually save our custom presets. And to do so is very simple. Obviously, you will set this up. So you'll play with a bunch of parameters, choose a bunch of things. I'll do something at random. Let's just select a few different sounds. Whatever, doesn't really matter what it is. Okay, that's kind of cool, but that's our preset that we want to save. In order to save that, we press B and C together at the same time. Just a quick press, and it comes into the preset browser. Now, the other way that you access the preset browser is with this switch on the right. You just do a long press, and that's how you can select your presets. But when you want to save one, you need to press B and C like that in order to then choose the slot where you want to save the preset. In terms of the preset slots, it's anything where the lights light up white. So as I scroll through, it starts over here. I've saved a couple of random things just so that I could test this out. As I move over, this one's empty because all the lights are white. This one is also empty. And as you move through, this is just for the red channel. We have all of these empty slots, and we can move all the way through and select any of these. And it is the same for every other channel. That's how you get your 80 slots. Choose whichever one you want. So if we move back, well, let's say we wanted to save something here. This is completely blank. In order to save to that slot, what we would do is we would press this again. You'll get this green kind of teal light as it's kind of running through, and then that preset has been saved. When you want to just access that, like I said before, long press on this foot switch, we go into our preset browser, and as we scroll through, we'll be able to see those presets. So we should see something here with colored lights. That's a saved preset. If we move over one, I'm expecting to see the next save preset that, of course, we just saved. Now for the next tip, we're going to take a look at how you set up the dual bypass. So by default, when you press the bypass switch, it will bypass everything, but you can be more selective with that. The way that you do it, if we kind of unbypass things for a second, is we press A and D. And this is the same menu where you tell it what order you want your effects chain. While we're in this menu, if we press the bypass switch, we can tell it which of these effects we'd like it to bypass. So by default, it bypasses all of them. But if we only want it to bypass certain effects, what we can do is we can hold down this bypass button to where we get these blinking yellow lights. Now, when it's a blinking yellow light, that means that by default, it will be bypassed. If we change it to a solid yellow light by clicking on it like this, and then we come back out of this menu by pressing A and D again, just watch what happens when we bypass now. We are bypassing everything except this one particular effect that we've set up. And of course, you can do that for any of those effects. Now, when you're working with the blue texture effect channel, the first one we have is filter. And there's an important thing to remember here. You can change the filter type. So by default, I think it's set to tilt filter, but I'll show you how you change it. We're going to press A and D, like we're going to change the order of our effect chain again. Wait for our blue flashing lights. And then if we move this encoder here, the blue one, you will see when we move it to the middle, we get green, and that is our tilt filter. If we move it all the way to the right and to orange, that is the high pass filter. And if we move it all the way over back to the left and it goes blue, that will be our low pass filter. So that's how you change those. Pretty important to know that. Another useful tool when you're using the looper is capture routing. So you can set it to be pre-effects or post-effects. The way that you do that is with A and D together. Again, like you're going to go into the menu where you're setting up the order of your effects chain. But when we have our flashing blue lights, we just change it with this mix volume button here. And as we change it, you will see over on the far left is pre-effects. And if we move it over to the far right, that is post-effects. Now, finally, I want to take a look at some of the global settings. I'm not going to cover MIDI information. I said that at the beginning. That's better left to somebody more knowledgeable on that subject. But there are a couple of global settings that I think you might want to access, and I'll show you how you do that. We need to go into the global settings where we press all four of these switches at the same time. And it turns orange. And the first one is to change the LED brightness. We're going to do that with the amount encoder for the character channel. So this red encoder. If we move this, you will see the LEDs just get brighter and, of course, dimmer. I'm going to leave mine quite bright. While we're in this same menu, if we move over here to movement and this amount encoder in yellow, as we change this, we're changing the audition for the presets. Now, by default, when you change a preset, when you're in the preset menu, it will audition that preset for you when you're playing some sounds through it. But if you're doing some kind of live performance, you might not want that to happen, so you can turn the auditioning off. We're going to do it with this amount encoder. As we move it across, you will notice by default, it is set to audition, so the bright white light is on the left-hand side. As I scroll over and it moves over one step, that means you're turning the auditioning off. There are also bypass modes for the pedal, which are accessed via the amount encoder, the green encoder on the diffusion channel. And if we set this over like this to the very far left, here we have buffered bypass. If we move over one, we get buffered bypass trail. So that's the next slot along. And if we move it again to the third slot, which we move all the way over here, that is our true bypass. Finally, if you want to do a global settings reset, you can do that by holding all four of these buttons until it flashes. And if you'd like to do a full factory reset, you do it like this. You have to go into global settings with all four. And then when the lights are glowing orange like this, you hold down A and D and you hold down both of these switches at the same time. I'm not going to do it here because I don't want a factory reset, but if you need to, that's what's going to happen. You would hold down all four of these. It's going to give you a little count, like a little warning, and then it's going to reset the device. So there we go. I'm going to sign off for the day. I was going to do another sound test in this episode, but it will make the episode too long. So what we'll do is we'll come back with a part 3. We'll run a bunch of drum breaks through here, some samples, just manipulate some stuff, do some sound design, see what we can come up with. I hope this episode's been useful. I covered most of the basic functions. The only thing I didn't go into was the MIDI because I'm just not qualified for that. But it is a surprisingly capable little box. It looks quite simple on the face of things, but when you delve a little deeper under the hood, it's actually capable of some pretty impressive sound design. Anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Take care.